OST 2016. This is interviews, music reviews, opinions, and more. This is The Hotter Show.
What is up, everybody? We are rolling out of you here today on episode 292 of The Hotter Show. I hope you guys are doing absolutely fantastic. Thank you so very much for tuning in and clicking that play button on today's episode of the podcast. I got a kick-ass episode for you today, and I try to do every single week right here on The Hotter Show. We sit down with my new buddy, Myke Penney from the Jailbirds. He is the vocalist and guitarist extraordinaire of the Jailbirds, and we talk all about their brand new upcoming EP that actually comes out tomorrow. So if you were listening to this on Thursday, May 20th, go check it out tomorrow, May 21st. And if you were listening to this after May 21st, then go check it out. It's available right now, Jungle, and it is it's kick-ass, okay? From what I have heard of it, it is kick-ass. And we, of course, talk about their latest single, I Will Move On, which is actually really the song that got me into the Jailbirds and also will be featured on that upcoming EP, Jungle. And we just kind of talk a little bit about the recording process of that EP, the writing process. We talk about his career, how he got started with music, some of his favorite artists and influences, playing music itself, a little bit about his teaching, and then, of course, near the end, we have some fun rig rundown talk, which is always a good time here on The Hotter Show. But either way, if you guys are fans of Jailbirds, you're going to very much enjoy this conversation. Or if you're just a fan of music, you're going to enjoy this conversation. So stay tuned for that. Before we jump in, I, of course, want to give everyone a huge shout out who supported last week's episode of the show, my chat with Big Slop himself, Mr. Matt Latour. Matt, thank you so very much again for coming on the show, my man. It was a pleasure. Always a good time. We're going to be chatting with Matt again sometime very soon because we had a great time, and we have so much more to discuss. We didn't really get into wrestling too much, and that is something definitely that I want to have him on to talk about. And before we jump into this episode, I need to give a humongous shout out to somebody who helped make this episode possible. I don't know if this episode would have turned out as great as it did. The content was fantastic. Let me be clear on that. But I did have a little bit of audio issues with it for whatever reason, just during the recording on Zoom. Apparently there was some weird interference or something happening, but my man, Mr. Brandon Bowden, former producer of The Hotter Show and current proprietor of Bowden Voice, was able to give me a big hand in making this episode, the audio specifically, more than listenable, and it sounds great. So Brandon, thank you so very much, my man. You really saved the day on this, so thank you, buddy. You know how much I love you and how much I appreciate it. If you need some voiceover stuff or anything, hit up my man Brandon Bowden, Bowden Voice, BOWDEN, Bowden Voice at gmail.com. If you need some voiceover work, he'll hook you up. He's fantastic. Go check out some of his work. With that out of the way, we're ready to jump into my chat with Myke Penney from the Jailbirds. Let's get into it. Hi, guys. We're joined by Myke Penney from the Jailbirds, vocalist and guitarist extraordinaire. What's up, brother? How you doing?
Hey, man. Yeah, no, not much. Thanks for having me on the show. Yeah.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It was fun because I've been well aware of what you guys have been doing over the last, basically as long as I've been a podcast, really, like the last 4 or 5 years. Yeah. And it's like, oh, I gotta get those guys on. I gotta reach out to those guys. And I had countless people from the Outshine, mainly it was Brandon from Outshine, who was like, he's like my boy. He's like, dude, you need to talk to Myke. Like, you guys are going to get along, and you're going to like, just like, he's a big gear nut and everything. And like, you guys are really going to get along. You should talk and have him on the show. And just, it's life, right? Sometimes it's just like, I'm like, oh, I got to reach out to them, and something shiny. Like, it's just how things are. Yeah. And then I heard, so I'm going to go off on this here just because to jump in head first. Yeah. When I heard your guys' latest single, and we're going to talk about that, and obviously we have tons of stuff we're going to cover with Myke here today, but just jumping into this, when I heard your guys' latest single, I Will Move On, I was familiar with your guys' work. Like, I'd heard like Doll My Brain and stuff, and this because my boy Matt from A Chat with Matt, shout outs to him, I had heard your guys' music mainly through him. Right. And I was listening, actually, the last episode that I was on, he had I Will Move On as like one of the songs on the episode. Right. And of course, because I'm vain at times, I'm listening back to that episode, and there's this killer riff, and I'm like, what is this? Oh my goodness, I literally was standing at work in like, I work at a school. I'm in the library, like emptying trash. Okay.
Yeah.
And like it kicked into that chorus and I like started flinging stuff around and like I was losing it. Cause it like just kicked me in the ass so hard. I love that song and that chorus. And the second I was like, okay, all right, I need to have this guy on so we can talk about it.
Yeah. Well, fuck. Thanks, man. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah.
Definitely. So, well, obviously like I said, there's lots for us to talk about and everything, you know, starting with kind of what's going on and what's recent right now, talking about I Will Move On. What was like, obviously like, so that song's going to be on the upcoming EP Jungle, correct? Or is that
right.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So for you guys, walk me through the song itself of I Will Move On and where that song came from. And then also I want to talk about the EP itself, Jungle, as well. That's coming up, of course, on May 21st.
Yeah. So that's a song that we wrote shortly, like I want to say maybe a year or so before recording it, which is weird for us. We're used to playing a song for ages before we even like thinking about recording it, right? Because we want to field test it. It always naturally like any song naturally evolves the more you play it. You might actually like we've found make a mistake or something and it sounds cool. And we're like, okay, we have to keep doing that, you know. And so we try to let the song mature before we want to record it. But this one really kind of came together pretty quick. And we felt comfortable with doing it pretty fast. And the lyrics came afterwards, actually. We had all the instrumental and everything, and we recorded this whole EP in 2019, late 2019, actually. And we did the vocals like in early 2020. And I remember, it had a few versions, as most of our songs do. I'm just a picky bastard, so I just keep rewriting it, and I'm like, it's not good enough yet, you know.
I will move on 1, 2, 3, part 4. Like
I can't tell you how many versions.
Final version 1, 2, 3. Oh, I get it, dude.
Oh yeah, no, I'm a perfectionist that way, and so I want to be happy with it myself for sure. So sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes it's the first shot. Sometimes it takes 15. I don't know. And this one was one of those ones where I was still like working on it, and I think Liam came up with the verse melody or something. We were all writing it together, and he just had that humming thing, and then from there that was kind of what inspired me, and then I was just like, I just follow the riff for the chorus and stuff. And really the vibe of it, like I try to write the lyrics. This is a good example of a song. Like I listen to like the vibe of the music first before I think about what the subject should be, because for me, like I always like to line it up with the vibe of the song, and this one is very like imperial sounding in a way, and it's very like royal guard kind of picture. I picture in my head, you know, and so I wanted a sound in terms of the melodies and the lyrics that kind of reflected that, and so that's where all of these kind of like harmonies came in, and the style of how we did it and all that kind of stuff. Even the way that I sang it, like if you pay attention to like that song versus Dull My Brain, like I'm phrasing things differently, and all that stuff goes into it really, because Dull My Brain is so bluesy. For example, Watery Grave is similar. Those songs are very like blues rock, riff rock oriented, whereas I Will Move On is extremely like a modern vibe song.
Yes,
more like Alter Bridge or something like that. Like it's just, there's not a lot of blues, there's not a lot of 70s vibe in there. Which a lot of our other stuff does have, right? So, yeah. I mean that one I don't even think we played it live before we recorded it. Or maybe once, but now we played it live a few times, and it's tricky to pull off. It's fun. It's one of those ones where it's like, okay, this one's next. It's good. It's good.
Well, and that's what's fun. Like you'd mentioned it and kind of hit the nail on the head, and it's funny. You must have read my mind, because I was about to say that. Like compared to your guys' other stuff, which is awesome. Like I love your guys' other stuff as well, but it's very, I guess I don't like to throw this term around too much, but kind of like that, the good classic rock revival, not the bad classic rock revival. Kind of like it's still modern, but it's like, it definitely, like you said, has that blues rock kind of riff rock 70s kind of vibe to it. And that's why when I heard I Will Move On, I was like, whoa, okay, to be brutally honest, when I heard it, I didn't know it was you guys at first.
Okay.
Then you started singing in the chorus, and I was like, is yeah, it is. So then I like went and looked it up, and I was like, I think I messaged Matt. I'm like, dude. He's like, dude, where have you been? That's like that. Yeah, it's a great song. I'm like, yeah, I know. Like, I was just it was different. It was so different, but it still had that core. Like the second that huge, massive chorus hit in, it still had that same vibe that your guys' other stuff had, and that's what I think drew me to that so much. But again, like it's, you know, like you mentioned Alter Bridge, very much that more kind of modern rock style that a lot of bands who do that kind of more classic style of rock, they don't always venture into that territory necessarily. So it's really cool to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, thanks, man. You know, I appreciate it. That's definitely something we try to go for with all our music. And there's a bunch of songs that we've had for a long time that haven't been released yet, like online or anything, that have this kind of, you know, like even a different turn than I Will Move On had. And so, like, that's something that we've always focused on, is just like what feels good to us. You know, we're not gonna only write a classic rock kind of song, or only write, you know, a heavy kind of whatever type of song. You know, it's we don't really try to box ourselves into that one thing, and we just try to just like, if it sounds good, it sounds good. You know what I mean? And if it sounds a little different, that's fun. That's good. That's great. You know?
Definitely. Yeah. As an artist, you don't want to having that kind of, it has to be within this box of, hey, like a lot of metal bands fall into that, right? Like they'll be like, yeah, oh, we're a metal band, we can't have clean vocals in our songs, or an acoustic guitar. What is this, folk music? Like, just some people don't, they're so preoccupied with their box that's like, okay, we are this and we have to stay in this, you know. And I mean, there are some rock bands that do the same thing, right? Like, totally. I'm not trying to brag on anybody, but it's just like, oh, why would we, it's like, why'd you write that riff in drop tuning? We don't do that. We only play in standard. Like, just, no, exactly. You know?
Exactly. No, and a huge part of that, I think, I just thought of this now, is our producer, Matt Grady. I'm just thinking about like us trying to take these steps, and he was always the one that would kind of like try to push us in that direction. Mm-hmm. And it was, it's really great to work with him for sure. He's just like, I remember him talking about how, some bands, like you said, like they'll say, like, for example, oh, we can't do this percussion part on our song because we don't have a percussion player live, for example. And it's like, no, like, serve the song. You know what I mean? There's a sample we use on Jungle that maybe if you heard the clip of the sneak clip or whatever, there's like this like African stick thing that we put on it. And Matt came up with that. He put it on and he sent it to us, and we were like, oh my God, that's the coolest thing ever. And like, it was so sick. And like stuff like that. You just have to be open to it. You know what I mean? And that's something I never honestly thought I would, like, I never even would have thought of that. You know what I mean? It never even would have crossed my mind, but we're lucky to have Grady on our side, and he has these amazing ideas like that. And then that's just one example of all the ideas he has. And it worked so well. He actually wanted to take it out too at one point. He's like, I don't know about that stick thing, guys. And we're like, no, you got to leave that.
Now it needs to stay in.
I live for that part. Like, you have to leave it. So it's great.
It's awesome to have that producer that you can work with that just like, they get it. They get what you're going for. They can add to what you're doing. It's not like a situation where, some producers might be like, oh, hey, like, does that part work? Like, I don't know, guys, it's a little heavy. Maybe let's try and go for more radio or whatever. And it's like, well, hey, how about we do both?
Yeah, exactly.
What if we can have a song that could easily be on the radio, like I Will Move On, that can still kick your butt super hard, right? Like, it's,
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's awesome hearing.
Matt's totally that guy. He's totally like the guy who goes, just be authentic. Do what your band does. Don't write a song for radio necessarily. You know what I mean? Like, don't sit there and try to formulate it. Just let it out. You know what I mean? Just let it be what it is. Let it pull you through its own process. Don't try to control it. And that's a huge lesson we learned from him. And we still remind ourselves. We had a session yesterday with Matt. We were doing some stuff, and same thing. We were just like, we had one plan and it went a completely other way. And you know what? It worked out fantastic. And I can't complain about any of it, right? It's just, that's just how it goes. Like, it's just, you gotta roll with it. And sometimes, like, the universe just kind of pulls you along, and you just gotta go, okay, here we go, we're going this way.
I guess we're going in this direction. All right, I didn't see that coming, but I guess we need a synth now. I don't know what's happening, but
exactly.
Next thing you know, there's a banjo. You're like, what's happening? Why am I playing this banjo part? What's up?
Yeah. I mean, I'm like yodeling or something all of a sudden.
Yo, on the next offering of music, if I don't hear some yodeling, I'm going to be really upset, dude.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But it's cool that you say that, because like at the end of the day, man, music is, at the end of the day, it's supposed to be an outlet for you, right?
Yeah.
That's, so if you're worrying so much about, oh, we need to make music that will get us on the radio and all this stuff. It's like, well, you can do that. And hey, you might like the song kind of a little bit, but then after a while, you're going to be like, this doesn't mean anything to me.
No,
it's better to write stuff like what your producer's saying. Like, it's better to just be authentic to you, do what you want to do, and write music that you want to hear.
Exactly. And
that your fans want to hear. And then hopefully it all works out. And there's a lot of bands that have gone that route and it's worked out great for them. So
no, that's exactly it. Especially in the rock genre. Like I find it's far more valuable to, like, just from like reading like the history of some other bands that are really successful. Like you kind of notice that it seems to be a lot better to stick to your guns kind of thing, and let the, if you're doing something that people think is cool, then they'll come out to your show. Like it's not as simple as that, but you know what I mean? Like you look at like Soundgarden or something, and they turned down multiple major label deals before the 90s, right? And they said, no, we want to build this underground, we want to build our fan base. We don't just want to take, we don't want to skip ahead and just like all of a sudden, they're like the biggest band in the world, right? Right. Look at like Metallica. They literally are the biggest rock metal band in the world, right? And they didn't have any radio support for years and years. And it was just like, how did they do it then, right? Like if that's the way to go, then it just, there's so many examples of Black Sabbath too is another great example. Like they weren't being played on the radio. Everyone thought that they were Satan, Exactly. Yeah, like, for sure. Everyone's like, no, we can't play this, and it's like they sold out stadiums. It's just like, build it and they will come. Exactly. It's funny you mentioned Metallica. Just to go back to that for a second. Like James Hetfield, he says it all the time in interviews and stuff whenever he talks about Fade to Black, which is really the first song that kind of sort of got a little bit of mainstream attention, where he was like, that meant something to me. And he's like, I wrote that for me. Yeah. And then he's like, I walked into my girlfriend's apartment at the time and her sister's just blasting Fade to Black. And it's like, hey, that means something to someone. Yeah. And then next thing you know, she's coming out to shows. Totally. And songs, people, there were fans that were like, oh, you're selling out on that song, bro. There's an acoustic guitar. It's like, people like it. It means something to me. Nothing else matters. Another great example. Exactly. He wrote that because it meant something to him. And he was like, this isn't going to be a Metallica song. Yep. And look what happened. You can hear him talk about that when they released Unforgiven. I think it was Unforgiven specifically. And he was like afraid because they did the whole unveiling of the Black album right in that big stadium. And he was like afraid that people were going to like laugh at him for singing it like that. What are you singing like that for, man? It's like, no, that's a wicked song. Yeah. I get it. Yeah. Exactly. Right. And he was like embarrassed by it. Right. But it's such a killer song. And his, it's wonderful. Yeah. Yeah, they're a great example of like I'm a huge Metallica mark. If you can't tell from my, I don't know if you can see my Metallica load flag, but so like, Load's a great example. Metallica made these two great records that they loved, and they were like, "We're gonna release it," and people were like, "Is this a good idea?" Bob Rock's like, "Hell yeah, man, let's do it," and then people were like, "This is not the Black Album Metallica," but they did what they wanted to do. And that's a really powerful thing. And I mean, totally, that's my favorite Metallica record. So whatever. That's my opinion, you go. But it's a great album, man. Yeah, no, it's very raw sounding. And it's like, think about how many songs they've written before that were thrash metal and stuff. And they probably just got bored, honestly. Exactly. Like, they were just like, I don't want to write another record like that. And they wanted to grow and change. And that's great. They're older people at that point, they're not 20 years old anymore. It's the natural progression of things. It's hard to, like, I'm a huge Godsmack fan, and Sully from Godsmack talks about this a lot, like especially the last like
few years, they released their latest record, and a lot of people were really disappointed that there wasn't any like really heavier stuff on it. And he was like, dude, like I'm in my 40s. I have a child. Like I'm not angry at the world anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm so angry. Like he's like, I feel different emotions now. I can't do, he's like, I don't want to do open string chugging anymore. Like, he's just like, I'm not into that. So why lie to people?
No, exactly.
Right. Like it all comes circle, kind of what we were talking about. Like, it's so much easier to be authentic to yourself. Right.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Exactly.
For sure. Well, talking about kind of on this train of thought, talking about like Metallica and Soundgarden and that, I want to go back because I know that there's a lot of bands that I've seen you post about and stuff that like I want to definitely talk to you about. But for you, what was some of the first movies that you heard? Like what kind of got you into listening to music and then playing music?
Listening to music. I mean, I wasn't like, as a kid, I guess I wasn't like, I don't remember like it being like an activity for me in a way. Like it wasn't like a conscious thing, but I did love music. Like I broke the CD, the Queen's Greatest Hit CD. And my dad literally threw it out the window one time because I wanted to play We Are the Champions again for the 15th time. And it's just like, it's the best. No. Yeah. We lost that CD. I don't know where it went. I can't find it anymore. It's like, oh no. It's like,
go to buy another one. It's like, come on.
I was obsessed with Queen. Yeah, it's great. But really, like the first time I remember, like I could tell you the street corner I was on, or rather the car was on, driving home from like Taekwondo when I was like 12 maybe, and I heard Thunderstruck by AC/DC. And just the intro and just like, that guitar lick. And I was like, what the hell is that? Like, and nothing had grabbed my attention in my life like this. And it was like, oh my, before even like the vocals came in, I just like spoke up and I was like, I want to take guitar lessons. Like it was just quick. And my parents looked at each other like, what the hell? Like it was out of left field. Right. And I just remember being like, I need to make that sound. I don't know why, but I have to do that. And it was just this like strong force in me. It was like, no, that's what I have to do. And yeah, I picked up guitar like, I don't know, the next week or whatever, and took lessons and stuff. And I've been obsessed with it ever since. And that's kind of how I got into it.
It's so cool. Like just the fact that like a lot of people, like especially when when I was that age, I was like, hey mom, I want to play guitar, come on. And then like, obviously I put it down, picked it back up, put it down. Yeah. But the fact that you just fully stuck with it, that's really cool. Because a lot of people don't.
Funny you say that. I like most students, I wanted to skip ahead and just play that already. Like I want to play Thunderstruck already, but when you have to learn all the boring stuff first, I was like, oh my God, this is brutal. And my parents actually they're like, you got to practice, you got to do it. You got to actually, sit down and then put the time in. And it was always a battle. And then it turned into them going, you got to put the guitar down. It's too much, I'm like, you caused this.
Yeah. You wanted me to do this. What is it?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like, I'm either obsessed or I'm not playing it at all. There's no in between.
Exactly.
That's awesome. So when you, like you mentioned, like you wanted to skip ahead to the exciting stuff and skip the boring stuff.
Yeah.
So when you were learning, like I know because you do teach, I'm assuming obviously you learned all of your theory and you learned all the, boring stuff. Was that something that you eventually grew to have an interest in?
Yeah, now I'm like, I don't really study it anymore. I think I know enough, to get by. And if I ever come to an obstacle, I'll learn what I need to learn kind of thing. But mainly like my teaching style specifically is like, it's a hybrid of like theory and what you want to do. Because I didn't want to learn like, when you're young and stuff like that, or maybe when you're just starting out, you do want to just play your favorite song. And so, that's always what I felt. And the first song I ever learned front to back was Sweet Child of Mine. And my guitar teacher laughed at me. He's like, come on, what do you mean? That like you're 14. And I'm like, no, this is what I want to do. I want to do it, for a talent show in 2 months too. So let's go. And it was always biting off more than I could chew kind of thing. I just kind of approach it like, let's learn some stuff. But then what always excited me, I was lucky that I had a great guitar teacher and great music teachers throughout high school and stuff. And they all kind of, in their own ways, kind of showed me like a really great way to learn all that boring stuff, right? Which was like, here's an AC/DC riff, and you're playing it, and it's like, wow, this is sick. And then here's why that's sick, you know?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what my
so
teacher
important.
Dion did. He was like, AC/DC specifically, they remove all the minor notes in their open chords, right? And that gets them, that's a huge part of their sound, is like they're removing some notes to make the chords really clean. And then the bass player will play those notes that they removed. And so that's a huge part of the AC/DC sound. And little things like that. And then it was all of a sudden interesting to me as a 14-year-old guy learning how to play guitar, like, oh, learning this Metallica solo or something, or learning this Guns N' Roses song, and you're playing it, you're here we are doing it. And once you're excited, once that smile's on your face, here's what you're doing. Here's what scale you're playing. You know, here's what key we're in. And then it's like a sponge.
Here's where this fits into the, the grand scheme of things.
All of a sudden it's interesting. It's not boring, because it's like, here it is in front of me. That slash solo is this scale or something. And then, oh, okay, that's cool. You know, now I've got something to tell my friends or something, right? Or now I've got something to go home and work on and kind of digest. And that's how I was just lucky that I had teachers like that, and they showed me that. And so, I had other teachers that didn't do that, and that's why I moved on from them and found these good teachers. I guess I'm just lucky that I stumbled upon them, though. So, yeah, that's
awesome. Because for a little bit of time, I worked at a music store, and we like had teachers and stuff, and like the way basically I always wanted them to teach was that way. Because I'm like, look, you can't just sit down with a kid and be like, hey, we're going to learn all this boring stuff, when they're just like, I want to learn how to play Thunderstruck. And it's like, well, you can't play that yet. It's like, well, let's, and I would say to some teachers who weren't like that, like, hey, why don't you try and do both? Hey, here's why that riff is so cool. Mm-hmm. It's like, make a lesson out of it. Don't just, no, you can't play that. We're going to learn how to play this scale for 2 weeks. It's like, come on,
you must play this scale first, right? Yeah. There's no rules, Some of the best guitar players have no idea what they're playing too, right? So
yeah, one of the biggest surprises I ever had in my life was when like I would realize that, hey, some of these great guitar players know nothing.
Yeah.
People who, the best example is probably Dave Grohl. Like, he doesn't know anything about guitar, like nothing. And he'd be like, yeah, that note, and like you do this. Like, I'm watching him try and teach someone a Foo Fighters song, and I'm like, I think I know more than this guy. I know nothing. Yeah. So like that's crazy to think about, right?
Yeah. And he's like in the biggest rock band, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Like, if you got the riffs, you got the riffs. That's all that matters, right?
It's, music is a feeling thing, right? Yeah, you just got to feel it out. And you don't need theory. Look at like another great example of that is Duff McKagan. Like you've heard him say it a million times in interviews and stuff. He says like, on Appetite and Use Your Illusion, he had no idea what he was doing. Like he was just playing stuff that sounded good. And then it wasn't until like Velvet Revolver era that he took lessons, and then he's understanding what he did. And it's just like, he's like, I did it without it, but now I understand. He was just bored. He wanted to learn, which is fantastic too. But he's an advocate for learning, and also the fact that you also don't need it, and don't like, because I feel like it might hold someone back. You know what I mean? Oh, I can't maybe afford lessons, or maybe I don't, want to put that time in to learn all this stuff, or maybe you can't wrap your head around it too. That's a huge thing a lot of the time. Like for me, it was a big struggle to get some of these concepts, and you don't need it. James Hetfield, another great example.
Yeah,
he's like, I don't know, I'm just down chugging this riff, man. Like I'm just doing my thing.
Yeah. Okay. I think it was when he was doing the S&M. He's like, they're talking about how like, he's like training. Okay. Then we go here and then we go here. Like just, it's because like, I know no theory at all. Right. Like when I was younger, my whole thing, and when I hear it from a lot of people my age who like have been playing as long as I have, and we know no theory. So, like I started off just writing. I knew nothing. I didn't know any songs either. I was just like, I'm going to write music. I want to be in a band. Oh, this is great. Classic high school kid. And I would play with a good friend of mine who was like, he's amazing, knows so much theory. Like he got obsessed with it. And I'd be like, hey, check out this riff. And I'd love this riff. And he'd be like, that's really cool, but it doesn't make any sense. I'd be like, well, what do you mean? He would try and explain it like, hey, here's why that doesn't make any sense theory wise. Whereas now he's like, okay, that's not necessarily important, but it's like when we were younger, it was like, he was super, oh, it doesn't make any sense. That can't be a riff. I'm like, yeah, but it sounds dope. Like, yeah, exactly. Why can't this be a riff? It sounds awesome. Like, yeah, tell that to Dimebag, right? His riffs are fun. Exactly. Like they make no sense. Oh, his playing in general makes no sense, but yeah, it sounds sick. Dimebag. There's a lot of guys, like when you really think about it, it's like that makes no sense. But look at Randy Rhoads' guitar playing. I never got it for a lot of years. I never understood why people liked it, honestly. And then only recently I was like, it's just so manic in the best way. There's no pattern to it. And it's just all over in the best way. It's like symphonic yet not patterned at all. It's so cool. It's just that it's such his own thing. And that's definitely why people like it, right? It's so unique. And, for sure. And I mean, there's, being a metal guy, like there's so much stuff within the genre of metal and metal playing that just like makes no sense as far as like, I'm a big like drop tune baritone guy. Like I like my baritone guitars and stuff. And like when I first discovered like, oh, I can tune my guitar to like F and just do some disgusting stuff. Yeah. And I would talk to my theory friend and he'd just be like, but like, you don't need to do that. I'm like, yeah, but it sounds cool. Like, just, are you listening right now? Yeah. Do you hear this noise that my guitar is currently making? Yeah. And like, you look at like Gent and all that stuff. And it's just like, oh, like, come on, man. Like, do we really need to do that? It's like, but that's music, right? Like that's, again, it's all about expression and exactly. You can't say one way is wrong or one way is right. It's about what someone wants to do. Yeah, exactly. And that's why it's so important. And it's great. Like, like you mentioned some people like with Duff, like him getting bored with theory or not knowing his theory and just kind of going like, let's take some lessons. Like I've often thought, I'm like, it'd be really cool to like sit and just learn finally, like, hey, what is this thing I'm doing? Like, exactly. You know what I mean? Exactly. Yeah. That's cool. And that's fun. But so for you, like obviously talking about like different guitar players and that, was there some players that like in the early days when you were playing that you really gravitated towards? Like you mentioned like Guns N' Roses were a band. Yeah. Obviously AC/DC, like so obviously like Malcolm and Angus. I mean, come on. That's, classic. The god of rhythm guitar himself. Yeah, exactly. The riff lord. Slash was still is my number one. It's just, he's just so great. There's so much emotion in his playing. It's with Slash for me, when I was younger, that Lenny Kravitz song that he plays the solo on? At the time I had never heard it before. I don't even know what it's called, but I can't think of the name, but I know it's one of the hits or whatever, and he plays a solo. And I remember like, I think I was driving at the time, like I had my license or whatever, and driving to school or something, and it came on the radio, and I was like, it's a kick-ass song, so I was listening to it, and then the solo comes in, and again, I didn't know that he was playing the solo, but I was like, that's definitely Slash playing, what the hell? And it's like, how do I know that it's him playing? You know what I mean? Like you just know, how can I pick that out? Exactly. It didn't make sense. I'm like, this is a guitar. Like, how do I know that it's him? And then sure enough, I looked it up and it was. And I was like, that's the most bizarre thing. I had never experienced that before. And then there's only so many guitar players that you can say that about. You know what I mean? You know immediately that it's them. Brian May is a great example too. You know immediately that it's him playing. Like Zakk Wylde was another good example of that. He has a sound and you always know it's him. Like that song "Porn Star Dancing." That was another example. Yes. He's playing the solo, and it's like, you just took that out of my mouth. I was about to be like, "Porn Star Dancing." Yeah, I remember hearing that same way driving down the street, and it was like, "That's Zakk Wylde, right?" And I look it up, and sure enough, it is. And it's like there's something to be said about that. I think it's pretty cool. For sure. And you mentioned Brian May. I don't. What song was it now? There was it was a Five Finger Death Punch song, and oh my goodness, it was the cover they did of, oh my goodness, I'm gonna I'm looking up this Lenny Kravitz thing right now, by the way, guys. That's why I'm like, if you hear me typing, that's why I'm looking this up because it's bugging me.
I didn't realize he played on a 5-Finger Death Punch song.
Yeah, he did this. He did a solo for it.
No way.
And cool. I don't remember. It was like a really quick little section, but like, and like I'm sitting listening to the song and I hear this guitar part and I'm like, that's Brian May. How did they do that? And then to come to realize, yo, they had Brian May in the studio and he just did it. I'm like, that's cool.
That's really cool. Exactly.
It's like
your voice, right? Like,
yeah,
it's so,
exactly.
It's so neat. Like it blew my mind. And that's partly why I love Slash still. You know, him and, you know, Richie Blackmore is a big one, Tony Iommi, all those guys, you know, a lot of the big names for sure. Kim Thale, you know, Mark Tremonti, Miles Kennedy, those guys. Miles Kennedy is a criminally underrated guitar player.
Oh, yeah.
I like him more than Mark, actually.
Really? That's cool.
I think he's better, honestly. I just like his phrasing better. And he just sounds, he sounds like he's just so relaxed when he plays. It's just like, here it is, you know, and it's like this amazing thing that he's doing. And it just sounds so effortless. And it's the same with his vocals. You know, you look at him sing and it's like, you're not even trying right now, you know.
Dude,
it's almost frustrating.
Yeah, it's like it's super, super frustrating. Yeah. By the way, I don't want to derail this because I'm like you're engaging me, but "Always on the Run" is that Lenny Kravitz song with Slash?
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Right.
That was bugging me. I was like, I need to look this up.
It's like holding in a sneeze. You have to know. Yeah,
for sure. But it's funny you mentioned like with Miles Kennedy because like when Alter Bridge came out. You know, like I was like in high school, like, you know, I was a huge, huge Creed fan. Got no shame, love Creed so much, still do.
Yeah.
And when they came out and I'm listening and I'm like, yo, like this Miles Kennedy guy, like he's amazing.
Yeah.
Come to find out, he's an even like some would say almost a better guitar player. And it's like, oh, he's better than Mark. Yeah. And Mark's even like, oh, he is 10 times the better player than me. Yeah, like there's no question he is.
Yeah.
And it's just like everything you mentioned, like then you go back and listen to, you know, some of his like jazz fusion stuff and like Mayfield 4. And it's like, it's like, what? Like this guy is insane. And the next thing you know, he's playing with Slash and like, it's just like, come on, man. Yeah. It's like, you know, there was a version of Kashmir that Alter Bridge did. Have you seen that video? I'm sure you've probably seen that video. Yeah. It's just like,
I've seen, the only reason why I've seen every single video of him singing is because I'm trying to find one where he fucks up and I still haven't found one.
The only one that like he didn't mess up, but like I don't think so personally, but a lot of people credit it as like the only bad performance he ever did.
Wow.
And I mean, it wasn't it was amazing, but it was when he did Crazy Train with Slash and the Conspirators. I don't remember where. And the thing is and like Ozzy's there in the audience and like, it was just really, and he's just killing it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the people like, what? This is not a bad performance by any, it's amazing. He's killing it. But there was like 2 different versions of the video feed apparently. And one of which like basically everything was a little out of time. Oh. So Miles, his voice did sound kind of weird.
Okay.
So like, because I looked into it because I was like, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Honestly, that's what I would do too. I'm like, this might be a technical thing, right?
It almost sounded like he couldn't hear anything, and he was just like, "Fuck it," like just
on stage, gotta keep going. Yeah.
And the crazy thing about Miles too is when you find out that he has tinnitus, like really bad, and you're like, so number one, he has bad tinnitus, which is horrible, and he can still stay perfectly in key all the time.
Yeah. No, he's amazing. Yeah. I've seen the guy sing while he's sick, and it's just like he'll say it like a few songs saying, "Oh, you know, I need your help on this next one. I'm fighting a cold right now." And I'm like, "What? What do you mean you're fighting a cold right now? You sound better than like half the other people in the scene right now, and you have a cold? Like, what are you talking about?" It's amazing. Like he's unbelievable. Yeah. There's a video of him from like 2006 or something, maybe even earlier, right? Like it was from the first album tour, and there was like some festival gig that they were doing, and apparently he had like pneumonia or something, and he's still
I remember that.
And it's like a comment on the YouTube video. I don't know if it's true. He definitely was sick. You could tell something's up with him. He looks really pale and sweaty and shit. And he just definitely doesn't look healthy. But he still sounded amazing. You know what I mean? It's just like he just knows what to do. It's great.
Some guys they just have it. Like they're just like
He's trained now too, and he's just it's so admirable for me. Like the extent he takes everything to, and he really Miles is really like my number one sort of inspiration for singing. Because he's got a clear voice and I've got a clear voice, and I for the longest time didn't really want to sing because a lot of my other favorite singers have like this distortion in their voice, like Axl and Chris Cornell and Ian Gillan and all these guys, and they just everyone kind of always 99% of the time rock singers go for this kind of gritty voice thing.
The grit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I can't do it no matter how many cigarettes I smoke. It's so clear. It doesn't change. And
trying, it's not happening.
yeah, believe me, I've tried. It just doesn't work for me. And so, Miles was really such an inspiration for that. Because again, Alter Bridge, there's some really heavy stuff going on there, and it's completely clean, and it's still sick. It's just like it's so awesome. I love Miles. He's great.
That's awesome. When you mentioned Chris Cornell, like obviously I gotta ask about Chris Cornell. Like Emin was a huge like grunge kid. Like that was I was more the Alice in Chains grunge, to be honest, but obviously a massive Soundgarden fan and Chris Cornell fan. What was some of your favorite work that he did with like you mentioned Soundgarden before and Kim Thayer and that, so I'm assuming obviously you're a big Soundgarden fan. Do you have like a favorite record from them that you really gravitate towards? Or
I would say Bad Motorfinger is my favorite one. I like Super Unknown as well, obviously, but I don't know, something about Bad Motorfinger. It's the first album with Ben Shepherd, and I like Hero too, but I don't know, Ben Shepherd is like such a great bass player. He's, oh my God, like some of the lines he plays on that album is just like, what the hell? How did you come up with that? And that was like the culmination of everything, I think, for them, and that was really like the peak in terms of like, they had done the underground thing as they wanted to, and this was their, I guess, second major label release. I think Ultra Mega was the first one or something. But it was like you could tell that they were really, really, really well oiled at that point, and it was just like they were just on fire. And I don't know if you've seen videos of them from that Guns N' Roses tour. Oh my God! Like there's one video of someone in the stadium like looking down from like stage right at them, and Chris is on fire, and he knows it too, and he's just like a god on stage. It's just great, and he's just like killing every song and playing "Searching with My Good Eye Closed," I think, and it's just so sick when he's just like in that. You can tell he's having such a good time, and that's a huge part of why I like Chris Cornell, is because he's just a guy playing music. He's not. Everyone holds him up as like, oh my God, it's Chris Cornell and stuff, and yeah, he is amazing. Like there's no doubt about that, but he's always said like, I'm just doing my thing. And so he's super chill and down to earth, and it's really cool.
It's funny you mentioned that, like that era of him live, because one of my favorite Soundgarden song, Room 1,000 Years Wide. Yeah. There's a video of them playing that live, and similar situation where, that's a song that he doesn't play guitar at all. He just sings, right? So yeah. I'm watching and I'm just like, this dude just oozes, like it's not an ego thing. Yeah. It's just like, hey, I'm having fun, but I'm also well aware of the fact that I am murdering this song. Like just exactly. I know I'm doing good, and that's got to be a wonderful feeling when totally. Like, okay, I'm killing it right now. Like,
totally. Oh, he's living high at that moment. Like absolutely. Like yeah.
For sure. Were you a fan of his work with like Audio Slave and that at all, or?
Oh yeah, I'm a fan of everything he did. The pop album he did is great.
Scream,
dude.
I actually really like that record. A lot of everyone was like, "What is this?" I'm like, "It's Chris Cornell."
Yeah, it's like, sick. It's so good. Was
again,
T-Pain that he did it with?
T-Pain. He did it with that, and that's why everyone was like, "Oh."
This is going to piss a lot of people off, right? And Chris is like, "Good."
Yeah, he's like, "Hey, I wanted to make this record. It means a lot to me."
Yeah,
that was all I needed. At first, I was that kid too. I'm like, "Oh, come on, Chris."
Yeah.
Then he did an interview and he's like, this record means a lot to me. And I'm like, that's good enough for me.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. You know, give it a fair chance. Don't go in there expecting Audio Slave or Soundgarden and you'll be fine. You know?
Exactly.
You know, it's good. It's good stuff. Yeah. Euphoria Morning too. All those records.
Everything. Oh yeah.
I don't think he's put out something that I wouldn't listen to. You know, he had such a great way of writing songs, and he's one of those singers where you could give him any song and he would just nail it, you know. Just the tone of his voice, how he phrases things, and he just has such a powerful voice in a lot of ways.
Even singing other like iconic singers' songs, like when he went on stage and did Crawling with Linkin Park Live, and he's singing it, and I'm just like, this is Chris Cornell after apparently a set, because I think like Chester was saying he was like down the street or something playing, and he just showed up just to say hey. He's like, yo, come sing with me. And he's like, dude, I just finished. And he's like, no, come sing with me. And he's out there singing the chorus from Crawling, and like, which is it's a you know, pretty heavy chorus line, and he's just like casually just like like singing.
He's all warmed up at that point, right?
Yeah, exactly. So he's just nailing it.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, like
it's so good.
Like, what is life right now?
Yeah. I'm glad that I got to see him once before he passed, because I at the time, like I really got into him like a couple of years before he died. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, it kind of sucks I didn't get to see him perform more. But yeah, wow. It was so, even at the time, like it really won me over. I went to a festival in Kitchener I think it was called Festival of Friends or something. It happened for like 2 years in a row, and then it never happened again. But they headlined one year, and you know, Monster Truck played that day, and Glorious Sons I think played that day as well. And at the time I loved Soundgarden at the time, but then once we saw that performance, it was like, oh shit, like I just dove right in, and I just at that, because I heard so many songs that I had never heard before that they played, and it was like, what is this? This is sick. And it's just, you know, just took the deep dive after that.
Oh, for sure, man. And I mean, that's something that, you know, even up until the end, he was still untouchable, and they were still a band that still having fun, still just pouring his heart on stage every night. And like, it's just, I watched the concert footage of the last show that he did, not to bring this on a downer, but just I watched that final concert because I didn't want to, and I was like, you know what, like I kind of want to, and like just that same confidence, and then just he's just kind of like, thank you, good night, and just I'm just like, shit, like that's just, there's never going to be another vocalist like him, man. He was one of a kind.
Exactly. He said it best too. No one sings like you anymore.
Yeah. For sure, man. Well, just talking about vocals too, real quick, I want to ask, like, when you started singing, like, did you take any lessons for vocals or what? Or also, okay.
Big time. Yeah. Oh yeah. I was a singer before. My guitar teacher in high school actually was the one that pushed me to do it. I'm singing backups in the band I was playing in and stuff, and she's like, you have a good voice. You should do this. And I was like, no, I'm a guitar player. I don't want to do that. I'm not into it. And, you know, wasn't confident with it at all. And she really pushed me to do it, Miss Denise. And she was amazing. And she really just gave me the confidence to do it. And then, you know, listening to Miles and stuff. Because at the time, again, like I was super into Avenged Sevenfold too. So obviously that's a really dirty vocal sound. So like I took lessons starting when I was 20, I think. I'm 26 now. And so, I've been taking lessons pretty much even before Jailbirds started. I was taking lessons because I eventually kind of got the hunger for it. And I was like, I want to be a singer now. And I want to know how to control my voice, because I knew that I could, like, you know, I had a decent range and I had a decent tone, but it wasn't consistent. And I was like, how do I make this consistent as my guitar playing? Because I can sit here on a good day or a bad day. If I'm hungover, I can still play guitar, kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's just like, but that's not the same thing with your voice, obviously.
Of course, yeah.
So, you know, it was one of those, that's who I am. I just have to figure shit out. Like I need to learn the inner workings of things like that. And so it's just what I do, I guess. And having had success with so many teachers in my life. Like I'm lucky to say that I had great teachers, because a lot of people don't have great teachers, and I think it turns them off from learning from people. So I was just kind of lucky that I had people show me the right way with stuff. And I've had the same vocal coach for 6 years now. His name's Jason, and he's amazing. I couldn't do anything without him, honestly. Like he just really, he just tells me when I suck, and that's the best. You know what I mean? He's just like, nope, that sucks. Do it like this. And it's like, that's what I need. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, it just don't beat around the bush. You know what I mean? Don't, oh, well, that was okay. But it's like, no, just tell me.
Yeah. Don't spare me. Just, exactly. Yeah.
I want it to be efficient. You know, and that's why I love Matt Grady too, our producer. Like he's the same way. If a take wasn't good, he's like, nope, do it again. I'm like, okay, here we go. I don't want to. It wastes so much time. You know what I mean? We're in there at the studio. I just want to. Let's go. Let's do it.
Any kind of creative endeavor. If you're doing it with someone in that kind of a way, no matter what it is, if they're just kind of pussyfooting around like, that was good, man. It's like, no, come on. If that sucked, tell me it sucked. Exactly. Hey, TJ, that podcast you did really sucked. Don't do that again. It's like, good to know, man. Like, just like
it might sting a bit, you know, but you have to be able to take criticism, right? That's huge. You can't learn otherwise. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's one thing if someone's just like, hey, man, you suck.
Yeah.
Okay, why? You just suck. Okay, thanks. Have a good day. Yo, man, just that new song you guys have sucks.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you should not play it anymore. Okay, thanks, dude. Like,
thanks, buddy.
I think there's a limit where you can still be like, okay, whatever.
Yeah,
but
I mean, it depends on who it's coming from. Yeah, exactly right.
I don't like that riff. I think you should have played this riff differently. Do you play guitar? No.
Yeah.
Thanks, dude.
Exactly. Yeah,
for sure. That's awesome, man. Well, before we go, I want to make sure I ask, because I'm excited to ask you about this. That amp behind you.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful looking amp, and I can see your guitar as well. So I want to ask about that. What's the rig? Oh, we're going to see the guitar?
Oh, I can pull it.
We get a little look for the people watching the video.
This is it's my baby.
That is such a gorgeous Explorer, man.
Thanks, man. It's all beat up on the corners. This actually has a funny story behind it. I never liked Explorers growing up. I never even considered myself playing one. I was a Les Paul guy, having loved Slash, and I had an SG and all that, loving Tony Iommi and Angus and all that stuff. But I walked into a Long McQuaid one day, and this was a while ago now, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and there was this Explorer on the wall. And it was in the used section, and I was just like looking at it, and it looked cool. I was like, okay, that's kind of neat. I just looked at the price tag, and I was like, oh, these are usually much more expensive than that. Maybe I'll give it a shot. And I picked it up, and I plugged it into an amp that I don't even like, and because it was the only one that was available, and it was like, oh, what is this? It was just immediately, it was like, this is sick. Like this sounds wicked. Like, I don't know why. And it just had this feeling. And I don't know, it just felt perfect. I never had a guitar do that before. And it was like, this is so sick, but it was kind of confusing at the same time. Again, it was like the first experience I had with something like that. And so I was like, okay. I was playing it, and I was like, I'll put it back. Let's come back tomorrow. I'll sleep on it. And I came back the next day, and I was like, yeah, it's the same thing. It's got a vibe for sure. And I was like, if it's here in a week, I'll buy it. And I went home, and I went back a week later, and it was still there. And I was like, okay. So I took it home, and it's been my number one ever since. Like, I can't put it down. And I always go to other guitars, different sounds and stuff. And I love my other guitars too, but there's just something about this one. I don't know what it is. I've tried other Explorers. They don't feel the same. There's just something magical about this one. And it's a 2003 Gibson Explorer reissue, 76 reissue. There was a note. The funny story is there was a note in the case from the guy who had sold it back to Long McQuaid. And he said, here's my phone number. This guitar is my favorite guitar I've ever owned. It's kind of a sad story. He had to sell it for whatever reason, pay some bills or something. And he said, if you ever sell this to whoever buys it, please try to, text me, let me know. I would buy this back from you. If I had the ability to do so. And I'm never going to sell the thing, so that sucks for him. But he said, like, on the note as well, that he played in a metal band or something, and he toured around the world with it and everything. The case is all beat up and everything, and there's like the corners are all messed up on it in a great way. And yeah, it just has a lot of vibe. I swapped the pickups because they were gross, the stock Gibson ones, and they, I just needed the Shep tones in there because those are my thing. But yeah, about the amp, the rig here, this is like mainly, it's like half of my rig basically, because right now what I run is I have two 412s or two cabs on stage, and two amps. I'll use this one as my sort of lead amp. This is a Morris 6970, as he calls it. It's like a kind of like a Marshall tremolo from around that era, like the kind of like the Appetite for Destruction amp. Those old Marshall tremolos, they had a tube in it, a 12AX7 tube, to have the tremolo circuit in it. It was for the tremolo circuit. So a lot of people, what they did was they took those amps and they just like modded it so that it had an extra tube and you can get more gain out of it and stuff. And so it's said that on Appetite for Destruction, that was the amp that Slash used, that 39 mod or whatever it was, I think it was called. It was supposed to be a Marshall tremolo, and there's a lot of other people that used Marshall tremolos as well. And so basically that's what this thing is. It's like you can go into the low input on this thing and it sounds like a super lead. It's so sick. You just turn the master all the way up and then you up the gain and you get this big AC/DC tone out of it. It's wonderful. And then I run it on the high input and it sounds just sick. It's so great. And again, that's my lead amp. So I right now I have it on a volume pedal, and my other amp is a Morris XS2, which is kind of like, this one's kind of a blend between, it's the red amp if you've seen any photos of us playing on stage. This one is like, it started its life as like a hybrid between his XS amp, which is its own thing, and it's a hybrid between that and a JTM 45 style circuit. And so it's very spongy when I got it. When I bought it used, you know what I mean? It wasn't really what I was going for because I like the chug. And so I was trying to do that, and just kind of the low end wasn't quite right. So anyway, I took it to Glenn, and he just, as he does, he watched me play and was like, oh, you'd like this. And he'd change this resistor or do some mod to it or something. And he would just, that's why I love him, because you don't even have to talk to him about what you want. He just knows by watching you play. He
just hears it and he's like, oh, he'll want this.
Exactly. It's like, it's just such an artist thing to me. It's such a like a wizardly thing for people to do. And when people are that good at something, they just do that. They look at you and they're like, oh, you're picking like this and you're phrasing it like this. And so you're probably going to like this, I don't know, tube, or I don't know what the fuck he talks about half the time. He talks about it like, to me,
tube, resistor, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. It's like, I don't know what this is, man.
It's all a different language to me. I have no idea what you're saying. But sure. You go ahead.
Resistor tube circuit.
I just know it makes a good sound. That's all.
Guitar go chug chug. I get it. Yeah. All right.
Exactly. And so, yeah, I mean, since then we recorded our Black River EP with it and stuff. And then Matt Grady helped us find our sound. And then all of a sudden, like, basically the tone on that first record was like that Morris and an old Bassman and like a Marshall super lead. That was kind of the blend we used. And so the XS was nothing like those other two amps. So basically I took it to Glenn and I was like, I need this thing to sound like 3 amps at once. And he's like, okay. And so we put an old high watt transformer is in there, and like from the 70s. And there's a weird power transformer in it that only Glenn owns the patent to. And there's like an old Marshall choke in it and all these different mods and stuff. And it's just a Frankenstein of an amp at this point, and it just sounds it's so unique. It only sounds like it doesn't, you couldn't play it and go, that's a Marshall tone. It's like, it's a little bit of that. It's a little bit of a high watt cleanness. It's got that clarity. It's got the low end of a Fender Bassman type of deal. Like it's got huge low end. And so that's really a huge part of our sound too, right? It's like these two amps beside each other. Again, I run this one on like a volume pedal, and so I'll have the other one with all my effects, and then this one's completely dry, and I'll feed it in for solos and stuff, or lead lines and stuff like that. And it kind of gives me my boost over John, who also plays Morris stuff, because it's the best. He just makes the best stuff. His master volumes are amazing too, so you don't even have to run the amp loud to get your tone. It's great. All around, he's really helped us out in a lot of ways, finding our sounds and stuff. And so I always, I try to plug them, have the amp in the background and stuff. Because if you've never heard of his amps, honestly, do yourself a favor and look them up and go try one and buy one, because like they really are the best, and there's no mercy. I'll warn you. It's a learning curve with these amps because they don't react like anything else on the market, in my opinion. I've played everything. I've owned every amp you could possibly think of. I've tried it all. And then once I got one of these, Jeremy Weiderman from Monster Truck had one, and I was like, Morris. And then I found one on Kijiji. That's when I found my red one. And it was just, that was the tone for me. Immediately, I had 2 Soldano amps at the time, and I sold them. I was like, these are nothing compared to it.
Once you find it, you're like, that's it. Yeah,
exactly. And it was night and day. Again, like I had orange amps, I had Marshalls, I had Mesa Boogie amps, I had, the Soldanos, I had tried Friedman, I tried all these different things, and I was always fiddling with it, and there was just something wasn't right. I don't know what it is. And if I did, I used to have an old JMP from 1980. And it was pretty sick, but again, like I had to put a pedal in front of it in order to get anything out of it. And then you can't quite I like to roll off my volume pot a lot to get my clean sound and stuff like that. And just, you can't really do that with those amps. It just doesn't sound good. Whereas these things, I don't need anything. I don't need any pedals. I don't need, it's such a great way to set up a tone, in my opinion, because the amps do a lot of the work, and then all your pedals are like, just kind of like toppings for your sound, like a phaser or a chorus or a wop.
To kind of color things up. It's not really how you're getting your tone. Yeah.
Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with relying on a pedal for your sound or anything. It's not one way or the other, but the way that I prefer it, what works for me is like the amp does a lot of the work, and it's wide open. These things are so wide open. The difference, and I've learned this since, the difference with these compared to most other amps is there's like no compression in the master output or whatever. It's just wide open like old amps. So it really, like, what goes in comes out. So there's no mercy. It's not doing any of the work for you. And a lot of guys like some of these other amps because of the compression, and I've always hated it because I like the dynamics I get out of my picking hand and stuff.
Yeah.
And some people, they, whatever works for you, there's nothing wrong with it, but some people like to have that consistent same volume of note, right? No matter how hard they pick or how light they pick or whatever. And it's not my thing. I need to have that variance. I prefer it to be super dynamic and open.
It's another way to express yourself with your playing. Like if everything is the same across the board, if you're trying to pick lightly at a part for some reason and it's still coming through super loud, it's like, well, you lose that completely in your arsenal. Like, I totally get what you're saying. Yeah,
exactly. And it's crazy. I actually set my neck pickup on any guitar. It doesn't matter what guitar. I set it till it's barely on, and it's a clean sound. And then I just flick my pickup, and there's my dirty sound. It's killer. You can't do that on any other amp that I've tried. It's so sick. They just works so well. And I guess if I'm going full nerd, the
let's nerd it up
here. The cab that I'm using right now is like an early, I think it's the late 90s actually, Mesa Boogie cabinet, and it's a traditional, so it's not an oversized beast. It's got the Mesa V30s in it, which I believe are the best sounding ones. If you don't know, Celestion makes like 3 different types of V30s. They make the ones that you can buy off the shelf. They make ones for Marshall, and they make one for Mesa Boogie. And I think that the Mesa Boogie one is the best. And just the way it sounds, it's so warm. There's none of that fizziness everyone talks about. Everyone's like, oh, V30s are so fizzy. The Chinese ones are fizzy, sure. The UK ones are even fizzy a little bit. These ones, the Mesa Boogie ones, are not at all.
They're just, like you said, they're warm and like they're so distinctive sounding. Yeah.
They're almost dark in a great way. It's like you can push the treble on the amp more, and you can get that cut that you want, that pick attack, and it's like, it sounds like an old speaker in a great way. You know what I mean? And obviously these are like 20 years old, so they're nice and broken in, but I'm running 2 V30s in X pattern, and then the other ones are redbacks, Celestion redbacks.
Okay.
And so it gives me that tone without, using a 25 watt speaker and I'm going to blow it because I like to play loud. So I don't want to take that risk.
Yeah, you don't want to blow any speakers. That would suck.
Yeah, no, screw that.
That's badass. That's awesome, man. Now, so I know you mentioned real quick just about the pickups. I wanted to make sure we kind of talk about that just a little tiny bit more. So what's the company again that you're using for pickups for that?
So we always use Sheptone pickups. It's a guy based out of California, and so that's what's in here. I mean, they just look like pickups, but believe me, they're Sheptones. And I always change the stock ones. I don't know. I'm so picky with everything. And again, Jeremy from Monster Truck, he introduced me to Sheptone because and he's like, you got to try these pickups. He makes like among with a bunch of other products that Sheptone makes. He really is known for making a true PAF replica. And
awesome. Okay.
It's just, I think he has an old Gibson Winder too. He's got something
to do with that old PA. Yeah.
He's got like a machine or a winder or something that was actually used in the 60s or something like that. But long story short, like and if you know a lot about old pickups or whatever, I don't know a ton, but I do know that they were inconsistent. So you could go on eBay or something and buy a PAF from the 50s and it might suck, right? Which is a shot in the dark. So you can get them from Sheptone and you know that every single time it's going to
sound great.
I've never played. He's sent me a few different models. I have these ones in this guitar are the BK humbuckers, which is a Brian. I can't pronounce his last name, so I'm not going to butcher it. Brian K signature pickup, and it's basically his tribute model, which is a PAF style pickup, but it's 4% overwound, so it gives you a little bit more push to the amp, which I like. And so that's what's in here. I have another Black Explorer that if you've seen our I Will Move On music video, that's the guitar I'm using in that video. And that is the Redheaded Stepchild pickups, which are, I think they're pretty hot. I think they're like 12K. These are like 8.5K. And those are great too. They have such a great mid-range and they're so aggressive. And then, I've got a Strat with some single coils in it, the AB Customs. And, it's just, he makes just such great stuff. And I try to, not that I try to use other stuff, but I have tried to compare.
I know what you mean.
It's not the same. It's just there's something missing. I got that Black Explorer and it had Seymours in it, and they should be awesome, but I don't know. There was something missing, and I was like, this isn't right. And then once I put in those Sheptones, I was like, there's my low end. There's that fullness that I get out of my other guitars, right? And it's such an sometimes overlooked thing to upgrade on your guitar. I find the pickups. And it can make a beater guitar into something really, really cool. Look at like Eddie Van Halen's guitar, right?
Yeah.
You paid like $200 for that thing. You just whipped it together, right? It's held together by duct tape or something. And then he just he used like how many pickups before he found that 335 pickup that worked for him, right? And he put it in after frying all these other ones, and he invented wax potting and all this stuff, and then he found that pickup, and it was an underwound pickup of all things. For all those years, everyone was like, he's got to be using a hot pickup, and it's like, no, he was using an underwound one. How crazy is that? But that's what it's all about. It's like finding your thing, and he was such a innovator in like switching up your guitar pickups and your pots and your strings
and constantly too, like always changing stuff
all the time, even on the tour. So you can see him, even that Shark guitar, the Ibanez Destroyer that he had, he ruined it when he cut off that fin, right? And that's why he didn't use it anymore, because he was a tinkerer, right? And that's largely why he was so brilliant and got so many great things done. But also it ruined a lot of stuff too. And you hear him talk about that, like he's melted pickups a million times, and he's ruined guitars, because he just went, I wonder if I cut this in half, right? And it's just like, he'll just do it. He doesn't even think twice. He just goes, he does it.
Yeah, he'd be like, so I was trying to make up the pickup here, and I cut the thing up, and I just ruined the pickup, man. I had to throw it out.
Yeah.
It's my Eddie Van Halen impression. Hope y'all liked it.
Yeah.
Much love, Eddie.
Yeah. Rest in peace. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. And that's funny, man. Like and it's a constant. Before I say that, just to round out the whole trifecta of gear, what are you using for strings?
Right now I use D'Addario NYXLs because again, I'm picky, and so I tried all the different strings, and those ones work best for me. They have a mid cut. I love my mid range, so a lot of different things. every little step of the way, I'm boosting my mids. Pickups, the guitar itself has a mid hump. I use a tube screamer in front a lot of the time that has a mid boost. I run the mids hot on there. I'm using V30s. Those are all mids. It's little by little, I'm boosting it.
Constantly boosting the mid.
yeah, because you can't go all on the amp, right? Yeah. You can't just all the way up. Then it gets gross. Every little step of the way, you kind of boost it here and there. But that's kind of what I'm using now is MYXLs. I'm using 11 to 56, and I have for a lot of years, but I'm thinking about going to a lighter gauge just to get a little bit more brightness out of them. I might do the 10 to 52. But
that's because do you guys play in? Are you in standard or are you in? Because it sounds to me like you're in some kind of a drop, but I never know anymore. Sometimes I'll guess and I'll guess wrong.
We're in full step. So a lot of the songs were in D standard, and then like our first EP is entirely in drop C. So it's full step drop. It's like drop D, but everything's 2 notes lower.
For sure. Yeah. That was my first guitar tuning. So
yeah. It's very Sabbath, It's just
for sure.
It's so doomy. It's great. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, playing that on the 52s would be interesting to hear. You're telling that. That'd be cool. Awesome. Yeah. Very good, man. Well, it's been a blast getting to chat with you and kind of learning all about you and that. And one question I always make sure I like to ask people kind of as we wrap it up here, what is your favorite show that you have ever played? Or the flip side of it, what was like just a funny bad story from like a really bad show? Or you can give me both.
I think my favorite show we played was right before the pandemic hit. There was a show we played at the Hideout in Toronto, and it was like the first gig or like one of the first gigs that we kind of felt like really like we had a community going, and it felt very like the crowd was giving us their energy and we were giving it back, and there was this really great exchange, and it was magical, and it was just everybody felt it, and it was very apparent, and that was definitely my favorite show. And then funny story, we were playing Cherry Cola's 2019, I want to say in August or so, 2019, and it was of course there was a bunch of people there, and this happens on the very last song right before we played Black River. My A string broke, and so I was like, okay, great. And I was lucky that we were about to play Black River, because that whole song is basically one string riff. I play power chords, so I just transposed it just to play one note or whatever. And so I was lucky that was the song. And then like I think I didn't even get 10 seconds into the song, my D string breaks too. And so I've got 2 strings broken. They're flying all over the place. People are grabbing onto them in the crowd and everything. And I was laughing. It was hilarious. I had to tune my guitar on the spot while I'm singing the verse and everything, because obviously it wrecked my intonation and everything and just threw everything out. And so I was like, okay, there's no option. This is the last song. I guess I got to get through it. I'm glad there's no guitar solo in this song.
Yeah, I was going to say, you would have been screwed.
I would have had to somehow tune the other strings too, but I basically just was playing like a fucking beater guitar, just like tuning the one string, trying to keep it in, and it's like, oh my god. And everyone was loving it. They were like, oh my god, this is crazy. It was so fun. I remember that so well. I was just like freaking out. It's great.
That's awesome, man. What a great story. That's like a good fun story. It's not like, our gear got stolen. Like, I've had those before too, where I'm just like, oh, that wasn't a fun story. That sucks.
Yeah, that sucks.
But that's awesome. I like that.
Yeah, man.
Beautiful, man. Well, thank you so much for the time, man. It's been great getting to chat with you again, guys. Jungle is out May 21st. So be sure to check that out. I'll be very excited to get my hands on that. I'll have all the links down below for Jailbirds on their social medias and downloading the streaming and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. Pre-save it now, everybody. Thanks again, man, for having me on. This is a blast.
Yeah, man. Absolute pleasure, dude. For sure. We'll have to do this again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. All right. Thanks, brother.
Yeah. Cheers.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. Listen to The Hotter Show right now. Are you in a band? Maybe you're a business owner of some kind, a performer, maybe a pro wrestler, an event promoter, an athlete, or maybe you're just an everyday person who needs some photo editing done. You need a great graphic design guy, and have I ever got the hookup for you? My man and close personal friend, Mr. Jason Reese from Jailbirds Digital Arts. Whether you need logos, t-shirts, stickers, tickets, business cards, banners, menu, brochures, flyers, posters, Facebook banner videos, door hangers, photo editing and restoration, print ads, lyric video editing, signs, notepads, window clings, letterhead, bookmarks, programs, magnets, greeting cards, calendars, rack cards, invitations, envelopes, pens. Jason will work with you to develop a style that is unique to you and that tells everybody just how special your business, event, or you personally are, and you will stand out from the crowd. On top of the fact that he does offer free delivery between Cobourg, Ontario and Kingston, Ontario, message him today right now for a free quote. That's right, a free quote. Tell him about your idea. You got something outside the box, he will make it happen. With great rates and service, you cannot go wrong. I've used Jason literally for everything over the past 3.5 years, and I cannot say enough good things about the man himself and his work. So contact him today on the web at jailbirddigitalarts.com or on social media under Jailbird Digital Arts. That's Jaybird digitalarts.com. You can also email him at jaybird.digital.arts@gmail.com. And always keep in mind that his business is successful when your business looks good. All right, gang, there you have it. My chat with Myke Penney from the Jailbirds. Hope that you guys enjoyed that chat as much as I did. It was a great time getting to talk to Myke and kind of getting to know him a little bit and learning all about his career. Definitely lots more that we could have discussed, so we'll definitely have to have Myke on again sometime. And if you need voice lessons or guitar lessons, be sure to hit him up. He is uberly talented, like very talented. As someone who used to work in the music industry, as far as with lessons and things of that nature, if I say a teacher is great and put my stamp of approval on them, you can take that to the bank, because I have dealt with a lot of not so great teachers in my day. But Myke is definitely not that. He has great lesson plans, and he has a great head on his shoulders as far as, like he was saying, about teaching the student what they want to learn, but why they're playing it, and a little bit about the theory behind it. That is so important. So big shout outs to Myke. That was really, really cool to learn that is how he does his lessons and learning all about his career. And again, be sure to check out Jungle. That comes out tomorrow. If you guys are listening to this on Thursday, May 20th, it comes out Friday, May 21st. Go check it out wherever you find your music. Go check it out, because it is it's badass. I'm really excited to hear the whole thing. I'm sure you guys will hear some kind of a Hotter Show music showcase on it in the next few episodes here. I have like 3 really badass interviews right now in the can that I cannot wait to share with you guys. So I want to get them out, because there's some really cool stuff coming. I'm really, really excited. We got a lot of great stuff coming. Episode 300 is sneaking up on us, and I'm still deciding what exactly I'm going to do for it. I have a couple plans. I don't know if we're going to do the live stream, the live cast thing. I don't know. Maybe I'll do something, but I don't know. But either way, keep it posted. Episode 300. I have a couple ideas, one of which is a guest that I've been wanting to have on for like 4 years, and I think it would be a wonderful time in the celebration of the episode of the Hotter Shows having this guest on. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I have a few irons in the fire as we speak. But either way, thank you guys so very much for tuning in. I hope that you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, and I very much appreciate you tuning in. Give you the old patented audio fist bump. And, of course, my peeps watching on the video, fist bump, boom. Thank you so very much. Again, be sure to check out Jailbirds. Jungle comes out tomorrow, May 21st on Friday. And I'll catch you next time on The Hotter Show, right here every Thursday. Take it easy, guys.